Hello and welcome back to Elden Ring. This is part 27 of the run where we prepare for the Shadow of the Erdtree DLC. In this run, we will go through every weapon, shield, armor set, talisman, spirit ash, physic tier, and cookbook that you will need no matter what build you are creating. Last time, we went through this entire left part of Mountaintops of the Giants, also known as the Consecrated Snowfield. And in that part, the notable items we got include the Black Flame Monk Amon Spirit Ash. We finished Latenna's questline. We got a few golden seeds, along with getting some smithing stone 7 and 8s, along with some ancient dragon smithing stones, along with some ancient somber stones as well. We got the sorcery meteorite of Astel. We got the incantation unendurable frenzy. And we got the Alabaster Lord Sword, the Golden Order Great Sword, the Flowing Curved Sword. We got Saint Trina's Torch. We got the Sanguine Noble armor set, the Black Knife armor set, and while I didn't get it, I did point out where to get the Knight's Cavalry armor set as well. We also got the Spelldrake Talisman +2, the Stalwart Horn Charm +1, the Graven Mass Talisman. I pointed out where to get that, along with the Silver Scarab. And in this part, we are going to be starting at the Haligtree Canopy Site of Grace, where you may have heard it. These things. Pulling in their music through their weapon. And they have a chance to drop their weapons. There's a horn, or like a hammer, a great hammer, and a colossal weapon. The great hammer, dropped by the one there, is an extremely good weapon, actually. And we're going to jump down here to get the Prattling Pate My Beloved. And I'm going to be skipping most of this first beginning section for two reasons. The first is that there isn't really anything good here. The second is the damage. You may have saw that. That first attack took over half of our health, as you can see there. And I didn't show it, but I actually died there, and I was at full health. It was a one-shot. And going up there and off to the right, you can get one smithing stone 8 from this location. And you can also get a headpiece. And you can jump off there down to the side, and you can get a Lost Ash of War. But moving forward, you get a Newman's Room, which, personal opinion, is better. And it's also a much faster path with a lot less resistance. So, in my opinion, best to just go down here as fast as possible, because the only thing up there is just runes and enemies. So not really worth it, in my opinion. So as you can see here, I have the twin set with the Great Helm and the Dragon Crest Shield Talisman +1, along with 41 points into the health stat. So not as defensive as humanly possible, but I am wearing like a medium armor set, which has pretty decent defense. Not insanely high defense, but pretty decent defense. And 41 points into the health stat. In all of the previous Soulsborne games, that's like the hard cap. That's like where you end. But we still got one shot. So hopefully that kind of explains why I have this build. This build that's just so heavily focused on defense and getting health back. Because imagine trying to go through here with the Sanguine Noble armor set, which, while it looks amazing, it doesn't have nearly as much defense as this. Like, it's just... you need defense in this game. But, continuing on with the items, there's a Leonine Misbegotten here. And they are very aggressive and have a good amount of health and damage, but also they get bodied by guard counters. And this one here protects the Pearl Drake Talisman +2, which vastly boosts non-physical damage negation. So this would be magic, fire, lightning, and holy. And while it gives a bit of everything, it doesn't give as much magic damage negation as this one. It doesn't give as much fire damage negation as this one, you know, so on and so forth. But it does stack with them, and it gives everything, so if you're going up against something with a lot of magic damage, it's good to have both of those, or fire damage negation, good to have both of those. So, yeah. Though, continuing on, we can head back down the ladder and down the stairs. And this is the point in a Souls game that I like to call they ran out of ideas on how to kill you. Which is pretty easily noticeable near the end of the games when every enemy just has way more health and way more damage, and also there's way more traps. Like, you'll go, ooh, here's an item, but there's an enemy around the corner. It is a smithing stone 8, by the way. But yes, you will notice this a lot in this area. Not so much the health, but the damage and the enemies hiding around corners to try to get you. So, past that enemy is a Golden Rune 13. And then here, there's another enemy. And from there, we can take this jump, and there's a ladder going down, but there's just 2 of those giant plant enemies, and nothing else. And there's a ladder going up here, but it just leads you to more of those, like, weird, scrawny corpse enemies. Nothing else. Here, you're supposed to go straight forward, but then you'll get ambushed by this enemy and that enemy. So, as I said, every corner. If there's a corner, there's an enemy around it. So, do keep that in mind while you head through here, as it does make the area a lot more dangerous than other areas, even without the heightened health and damage. And as I said before, Leonine Misbegottens, lots of health, damage, aggression, but they get bodied by guard counters, especially from great shields. So, Icon Shield really putting in work. And here you can get an Ancient Dragon Smithing Stone, and corner, enemy. I'm telling you, every single corner. And here there's a Somber Smithing Stone 8, and then you can move on. And like I said, every single corner. Which is really a shame because I find that to be pretty cheap. Especially with the hiked up health and damage. It feels like they just ran out of ideas on how to make the game naturally difficult. And so they just try to throw cheap tricks at you. Which really sucks because I think that this has amazing level design. It's a very creative level design. That area is not worth it, it's just Aeonian butterflies. Though, maybe worth it to you. Though, as you can see, didn't mention it at the time, but there was a golden rune, and then on the roof, there was a smithing stone 6. And inside of this building is a somber stone 9, and once again, every corner. And moving forward, just in case you haven't learned, every single corner. I'm telling you. And here there's a golden rune 10. And then you can take a jump here and you can turn around and there will be another jump here with some enemies. And you may have noticed by now, I'm taking this part a little more informally. Just talking about my build and how the level does things and whatnot. So let me know if you like it. If not, I'm sorry. But it was just something I couldn't stop noticing while going through here. Though anyways, we got a golden rune and the Viridian Ember Medallion +2. This gives you more stamina and it is the strongest version of this. And as you can see, we get 21 stamina with 41 endurance. Which is decent. And then we can jump down here, head up the ladder, we can move forward, there's a smithing stone 6, and there is some stuff like behind us if you turned around, but nothing important. And I wanted to focus on the important items rather than getting every single item. So this jump over here, there's a Hero's Rune 4, and there are 2 battle mages here, both of which can drop their stone club, their hammer, which is a pretty good weapon. There is a smithing stone 7 and a smithing stone 8. Here's a shortcut elevator. But those enemies, I did 2 runs at this point that at least partially used their hammer, and it's not overpowered, but it is pretty good, especially if you set it to the cold infusion. because frost does a chunk of damage and stuns the enemies and makes them take more damage. And it's a hammer, which already has pretty good stun. So, yeah, decent place to grind that weapon if you're looking to try it out. Though here is a summoning pool in case you need help against this upcoming boss, Loretta, Knight of the Haligtree. And you can take them down. I'm gonna skip the fight for the sake of time. But beating them gets you 200,000 runes, the sorcery Loretta's Mastery, and the weapon Loretta's War Sickle, which is a strength, dexterity, intelligence based halberd with physical and magic damage and a unique skill. It also has a unique light attack combo that it shares with the Guardian Sword Spear. Pretty decent. From there, we can head down this absolutely massive ladder. And there is a doorway to the right, but instead of taking that, we're going to head up these stairs, because you may have noticed a chest while heading down the ladder. This chest gets you an ancient dragon smithing stone. From there we can jump over the wall because it's faster. And then we can make our way down here, where we can get to this area. Alphael, I'd probably butcher that pronunciation, Brace of the Haligtree. And I was actually going to have the higher part of the Haligtree be one part, and then have this be another part. But since I decided to skip the top very beginning part, where you were completely in the tree roots, that was only 17 minutes, and so that wasn't enough for it to have its own part, in my view. So here's Millicent.
Again, I can only see in which case I am of, but in whatever the case. There's the will, the dignity, the pride. There is some the will, the dignity.
And this is the final area for her quest line. So we're approaching the end of it. And again, a bit of an informal part here. Nightmane's Mist, which you can purchase off of Gowry, along with a glintstone staff. Any will do, even if you don't have the intelligence requirement to use it. I would highly suggest it, though you will need 14 intelligence to use Nightmane's Mist. And I would suggest having a few blue flasks. I put on one here. I would suggest having like 4. As you can see, I have 9 intelligence. Though Stargazer Heirloom gives you 5. And there are ways to get even more. In one of the previous parts, the one for subterranean shutting grounds, I showed how you can get way more intelligence. On this character, I went from 9 to, I believe, 38. And you can look there, that's half our health. That's one single foot soldier who took half our health. And mind you, again, I'm running a medium-sized armor set that has that 51 poise requirement. So not even like that happened because I had no poise, because I do. So, as I said before, this is the point of the game where the developers kind of ran out of ideas on how to kill you, and so they just start cranking health and damage numbers. Also, real quick, these enemies can drop smithing stone 6s, 7s, and 8s, which is very nice. Very, very nice. And up here, there's a smithing stone 8. But as I said, everything has a lot of health and a lot of damage here, and there's just a ton of enemies thrown at you, so good to have a very survivable build. Though here, Miquella Knight's Sword, Strength, Dexterity, Physical and Holy Damage, Sacred Blade. A lot of people hate on this weapon, which makes sense because it's not that good, especially since it's found super, super late into the game. But it looks nice, and it's not bad. Not really good, but it's not bad. It would be a lot better if you got it in, like, Limgrave. Or if you could get it from, like, the Tower of Return, teleporting into Landell. If you could get it there, it'd be a lot better. So anyways, here, as you can tell, is a putrid avatar, and they do this jump attack which spews out the scarlet rot gunk that does damage. So you're gonna do a lot of running away since you don't have a lot of room to move on the bridge. But once you take them out, you get the Rotten Staff, which is a strength-based colossal weapon with scarlet rot buildup. And here on the southwest side of the bridge, you can get an ancient somber stone. And then you can make your way up to the northern side of the bridge. There's also a Newman's rune on here. Heading up here, if you walk into this room, that enemy will aggro onto you. They'll stand up and you'll have to fight them. But if you have a glintstone staff and 14 intelligence, then you can use Nightmane's Mist, which will do a decent bit of damage to them. And it won't aggro them. It won't have them stand up. So it does take a bit of time, but it is a very easy way of killing them. And that gets you a Somber Smithing Stone 9. Though, that method does take a bit of time. And here, as you can see, there's some jumps. So you can jump onto this, and you can jump onto here, and then down, where you can make your way even further down into here, where you can get a Seedbed Curse. And then there's another one of these. And again, you can just Nightmane's Mist them. Though there's not one, but there's also not two, because there's a third one over there. This is why I said having like 4 blue flasks is good. And you want at least 11 mind. Since, as you can see here, I can only cast 3 Nightmane's Mist, because it costs 20 FP, and at 10 mind you have 78. So 11 mind will let you cast 4 times. And so since I only have 10 mind, and since I only brought on 1 blue flask, I have to jump down. Which isn't a big deal because great swords are busted. But it would still be easier to just sit up top with Nightmane's Mist. So, once we clear out this room, then we are free to pick up a pickled turtleneck and a somber stone 9. And so whether that is worth it to you is an individual choice. I'm just here to show the items. So heading out, as you can see, they're revenants. So be careful, don't die. Mimic Tear is overpowered. And from here, you can get yourself a Lord's Rune, and you can head southeast or northwest. We're going to head northwest because it's closer. And here, there's a ladder. We're going to ignore it. We can get to it naturally later. And here, there's a Smithing Stone 8, protected by another Revenant. And probably a good idea to take Revenants out, so that way they don't follow you. And here there's another ladder. Again, we will get to the other side of it naturally. For now, we can make our way all the way to the southeast part of this section, going through a few more Revenants, where we can get a Golden Rune 12, and then through a Stone Sword key door, we can get Marika's Sore Seal. This is a talisman that increases your mind, intelligence, faith, and arcane stats by 5 points each, to the detriment of some damage negation. And from here you can put away the Stargazer's heirloom for a little bit, since we won't be needing it for right now. Instead, we can head back to this site of grace where we talk to Millicent, and then we can make our way through the area. And yes, we are 5-shotting the normal basic soldiers with 40 points into strength. And our weapon set to heavy at plus 23. So I could get the weapon up to plus 25, and I could get strength higher if I dropped some faith. So we could have more damage. So that's not entirely enemies having too much health. But 40 strength, heavy, affinity, plus 23. Like I said, the enemies this late in the game have a lot of health. So just... that's something that you notice, and then it's kind of hard to unnotice. Though that doesn't stop the unending fact that greatswords are busted. And here we can pick up a Smithing Stone 7. Then from here, there is another Stone Sword key door. This one will get you the incantation Triple Rings of Light. So whether that is worth it is up to your personal decision making. Again, I'm just here to show the items. So from there, we can head forward and down, and there is a way up, but we are going to save that for after this fight. See, in this room, there are 2 Clean Rot Knights, and it is generally a good idea to take them out before moving forward. And taking them out, inside of that room, there's a side path with a golden rune 10, and then a smithing stone 7. And then this is the way we came in. We can head back out. This is the path down into the seedbed curse and to the lower area with the 3 crystallians. So that's an alternative way to get to that section. Though we already went through there. So we can instead head off this way, or we can jump over and make it onto here. And I know that these are basic soldier enemies, but that is a one-handed heavy attack, and it's enough to stance break them. So just, as I said, great swords are busted. So continuing on, here you get Clean Rot Knight Finlay. This is a Spirit Ash, and it's actually one of the legendary Spirit Ashes, which is very nice. Though up here, there's an Ancient Somber Stone. And then continuing even further, there's a Seedbed Curse. And at this point, you can guarantee to have at least 5 Seedbed Curses while keeping Bogart alive. So if you wanted to do Dung Eater's Quest, you can do that. I didn't do it in this recording for the sake of time, but that is something that you can go do at any time. Doing so, giving him the 5 Seedbed Curses, will get you his Mending Rune for his ending, and his armor set, which is one of the very heavy armor sets. Down there is one of the ladders that I said we will get to naturally later. It will lead you into that room, which, as you can probably tell, does not take kindly to you trying to waltz in. And there are also some Clean Rot Knights in there. And you can see there is an item, but in my opinion, not worth it. Again, there are Clean Rot Knights in there, so proceed with caution if you're gonna go in there. So there is a Smithing Stone 8. And here, Soldier Ashes, they aren't that good. We just picked them up because they're on the way. And there is another Putrid Avatar. Killing them gets you a big rune. So, if you want a big poppable rune, you can kill them. Though, not that important, and so for the sake of time, I'm just going to be moving on forward. There you can get a Haligtree Knight Helm and a Smithing Stone 6. And then there's another Site of Grace. Don't forget to level up. And, as I said, I would suggest going with 4 of the blue flasks, because unless you have a lot of points into mind, you don't get a lot of Nightmane's Mist. So here, I would suggest locking on to the middle one and charging Nightmane's Mist. And again, it takes a little bit, but it is very easy. And with that, you get the Rotten Crystal Sword, which is a strength intelligence based greatsword, or straight sword, physical magic damage, and slight scarlet rot buildup. So, if you're doing a strength intelligence build, that can be a good, like, side backup weapon, especially just to proc Scarlet Rot on a boss in the beginning before moving on. And as you can see there's a big rune, and then you can head out here where there's a waterfall of Scarlet Rot, and that over there is the goal, the next destination for us to make our way to. And I'm pointing that out because there are lots of pests here, and in the waterfall section there are some smaller ones that hide in the Scarlet Rot and are very hard to see. And as you can see, the Scarlet Rot means that you can't jog or run, and it gives you the slow roll. So unless you come in here with like Quickstep or Bloodhound's Fang, this is just going to be a lot of this. Though getting past that, you can get a golden urn 10. Then you can make your way down here where there'll be another set of grace right around the corner. And here, I would suggest going even further into the blue flasks, because we're going to be pulling out Nightmane's Mist for one more enemy. This one not being a Crystallian. In case you didn't know, it takes 4 Nightmane's Mist to take out those Crystallians. So as long as you have 11 mind, then you can take out a single Crystallian without any blue flasks. And the 3 that we took out before, sitting in a group, you can take out all 3 of them because you can damage all 3 of them with the same cast. Though here, it's a bit different, because again, it's not a Crystallian, it is an ulcerated tree spirit, which has a lot more health. And the way I do this is I sit back, and I don't lock on, I just free aim it. And you want to back up because you want to back up to those flowers, because that will hit you. And I believe I mentioned before that I love fighting these things. They are one of my favorite mini bosses. Though, as you can see, there's a death cliff, there's Scarlet Rot, and while I love fighting these things, I don't really feel like doing it with Scarlet Rot, and the death cliff doesn't really help either. So for this one single fight, I'm willing to cheese it. And doing so gets you a very easy 26k, along with a golden seed, which you can then head back and bring things back to normal. Like if you've been copying my build, you can take off Nightmane's Mist, you can go all the way back to 14 health flasks. You can get rid of Stargazer Heirloom, you can get rid of the Glintstone Staff because we're not going to be using it anymore. That was the final enemy that I use Nightmane's Mist on. Though, that doesn't mean we're out of the woods in terms of potentially tough fights just yet. Since we're coming back here for a reason. Two things. First is a great grave glowwort. And the second is Millicent's quest. Here, you can assist her or challenge her. And the choice is honestly up to you. You can do either. I was tempted to challenge her because in the DLC trailer there was some Scarlet Rot stuff. Or Aeonia stuff. And if you challenge her, she blossoms. And so I thought, maybe if you challenge her, then you'll see her in the DLC. But I have several characters lined up, so that way I can do the DLC like 5-6 times, just back to back to back to back to back in a row, one after another. And I've challenged her in, I believe, 3 or 4 of those characters. So here I'm assisting her just for some variety's sake. But you should be warned, that is half our health. And also there's 3 enemies. Whereas if you challenge her, then it'll be you and one of these enemies as an ally against Millicent. So it will be a 2v1, whereas if you assist her, it is a 2v3. So assisting her is much more difficult. But, like I said, both, like, you can go with either one, it's up to you, but assisting her gets you Rotten Winged Sword Insignia, which is a talisman that greatly raises attack power with successive attacks. So, if you swing a lot, then that's good. And here you can talk to her.
Thank you. Without your I feel thank you. But I paused. I took a tell that if I would rot. Please, the Scarlet soon cursely. I wouldn't want.
From there, you can quit the game to reload the area, where you'll find her corpse with the unalloyed gold needle, which is basically useless. But from there, you want to head back to Celia in order to go talk to Gowry.
Millis, why would you were so would you weak? Millis, Malenia, do you dictate? Malenia, do you dictate?
Normally, I'm against killing NPCs, but here he drops Flock's Canvas Talisman, which to my knowledge is the only way to get this. And it greatly raises the potency of incantations. So, yeah. But from there, you can head back to the drainage channel, which is the one we got after going through this Scarlet Rot waterfall. There is a summoning pool in case you need help in the upcoming area. And then you can start to make your way down. From here, you can make your way up. And on this rooftop, you want to head through this opening. And there will be some pest enemies here to deal with. And past them, you can get the Dragon Crest Great Shield Talisman. This is basically the Dragon Crest Shield Talisman in its strongest form for the ultimate physical damage negation. And here, if you look at our health bar, we're almost full, and now we're almost dead. And now we're almost full, and now we're like half health. And remember, Pest Threads is something that can be easily spammed. It's not really meant for damage, it's meant for catching things with high mobility and being a pest. And that's with 41 points into health, our pretty decent armor set, our strongest version of the Dragon Crest Shield Talisman. So again, hopefully that gives you an idea on why I have this build. Why it's so hyper-focused on getting health back and just being survivable. Because Elden Ring's endgame hit so hard. Traveler set, by the way. But the DLCs in these games tend to be endgame focused, and Elden Ring's endgame hits very, very hard. So that's why I have this. Like, why I'm showing off this character. Because as I said, I have multiple characters. I have a pure strength build with no faith. I have a dexterity build. I have an intelligence build. I have a dual strength dexterity build. And then I have this one. And then I have a strength arcane one. Don't ask. But moving on, we can head outside and into this area, heading out into the left. And as I mentioned before in an earlier part, if you don't like this build that I'm going with, but you aren't sure what to go with, then at the end of this, when I do Lanedale Ashen Capital, because it is a much shorter part, it's not going to take nearly as much time. And so I'll be showing some different builds, so you can get some more ideas. So, from here, I'm gonna stop talking for a minute and we can just continue to make your way through here. And in case you couldn't tell by now, these enemies get absolutely bodied by guard counters, as a lot of enemies do, which is part of why I have it as a big part of this build. So anyways, here we can get the Ghost Glowwort Picker's Bell Bearing 3, which lets you purchase Ghost Glowworts 7, 8s, and 9s, which means you can now get every single Special Ash all the way up to plus 9, assuming you've got the runes for it. And there's some runes for it. Though, as I said, this build is definitely not my strongest, but I think it's pretty good in terms of mindset for heading into the DLC. Like, good stance break, good defense, good survivability. You can move over to some blue flasks because you have so much health regen. Also, that knight that we killed, they have a chance to drop a pretty good shield. So, you might want to go for that. And this entire outside area, or at least this half of it, it is just runes. So if you care about items but not runes, you can honestly just skip this. Because there's some Miquella's Lily, there is one Artaria leaf, however you want to pronounce it. But that's it. Outside of that, it's just enemies and runes. So, this is just if you like the combat and like getting runes. As you can see here, I'm not using any red flasks. Like, I'm not healing. But I can still take a ton of damage and get a ton of health back and just keep pushing, keep surviving. Because heavy attacks with the greatsword stance break a lot. Guard counters with greatswords stance break a lot. So Assassin's Crimson Dagger gets a lot of use. And then Blasphemous Blade, you get health back with every kill. Taker's Cameo, you get health back with every kill. And then Icon Shield and Blessed Dude Talisman, you get health back passively over time. And then we could go with a heavier armor set. We do have the weight capacity. Especially with, if we were willing to drop the Blessed Dude Talisman for, like, Great Jar's Arsenal, we could definitely have a lot more weight capacity for a more defensive armor set. But I'm someone who puts good-looking armor over defensive survivable armor. And I usually like my armor to fit a theme. And this build going strength faith, so kind of like a holy knight. So that's why I'm running with this armor. So you could run with a better armor set, especially with Great Jar's Arsenal. Though it's survivable enough. Like I said, this build is just hyper focused on survivability and getting as much health back as possible. And I think that's a good mindset to have going into the DLC. Or like a good build to go into the DLC. Just as much survivability as possible as to not die. But anyways, we're not doing that boss, so we can end it here. That was Elphael, Brace of the Haligtree, which I can't even pronounce the name, so I'm not even going to put it in the title. But in this part, we got the Viridian Amber Medallion +2, We got America's Soar Seal. We got Dragon Crest Great Shield Talisman. We got Pearl Drake Talisman +2. We got Phlox Canvas Talisman. We got Rotten Winged Sword Insignia. An even better version of the Winged Sword Insignia we got before, way back in Liurnia. We got the Traveler's set. We got the Haligtree Night Helm. We showed how to get a good shield. We got the Rotten Crystal Sword. We got Miquella Night Sword. We got the Rotten Staff. We got Loretta's War Sickle. We got Triple Rings of Light. We got some more smithing stones, especially the ancient ones. We got the Ghost Glowwort Picker's Bell Bearing 3. And we got the Cleanrot Knight Finlay Legendary Spear Dash. And again, this run we will go through every weapon, shield, armor set, talisman, spear dash, physic tier, and cookbook that you will need no matter what build you're creating. This one was a bit more informal. Hope you liked it. We'll go back to the normal way in the next part, but yeah.